Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
and Blue Dragon 5. Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you we're gathered here today to mourn the loss of someone very special. Quite possibly the finest character actor who ever lived, the definitive curmudgeon, America's lovable grouchy boss, Edward Asner, has passed. Sad to say. We for many years, my associate and I, we've shared a love of this great icon, who embodied, that very much to his core old age is not the end of the adventure of life, but just the beginning of an even better one. And we're gonna miss him. We're gonna miss him dearly. And tonight we're going to celebrate Ed Asner's life and the roles that enriched our lives and gave us many loving memories.
All right, yeah. So, Dragon, I really feel like this is pretty much the Stan Lee of voice acting, where Ed Asner was obviously getting up there in age. He feels like he's one of those people where he feels like he's been a grandpa in pop culture forever. It's like he's just kind of like got that kind of like internal like ageless quality to him in that way.
Well, he's always kind
And
of had the father figure thing since the beginning. He's mocked that on SNL once. The fact that he just keeps like, people keep saying I'm a father figure, points out like the pre-father figure roles. It's crazy.
right. But yeah, I mean, suffice to say, Dragon, this is definitely a big loss for us, as you mentioned. Ed Asner, I mean, he literally has roots back to the very, very beginnings of our friendship with Freakazoid. So, I mean, you and I have shared a love from him, pretty much since the very get-go with the Cosgrove stuff. So, yeah, and of course, Up. And as you say, I mean, Dragon, I gotta say, just doing my research on this today, I mean, I knew he was in a lot of stuff, but like, man,
Over
this guy is
400.
it's just a cornucopia of voice acting that this guy's been involved in. And make no mistake, Dragon,
Yeah.
I'm sure with the live action stuff, we'll have stuff to say as well. You're probably gonna have to take the lead in that
Yeah,
regard.
sure. Well, I'm just saying. Look, you're not wrong about he. I think honestly, he's the Stanley of actors as well, because he hung in there for a very long time. Again, both live action and especially animation. But honestly, I think Stanley would cover it for actor. Period for him. Honestly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have Honeybee and Claude in the comments. Happy to see you guys. Hope you guys are having a good night. All right. So Dragon, let's just get right into it with the reaction. So well, it didn't improve my day, obviously. I was already kind of having a bad day at work. I don't want to get into the specifics of that, but suffice to say it really kind of put me in an even worse mood than I already was. So yeah, Dragon, it suffice to say my reaction to it kind of sucked. It really like it came at a bad time in my life where it's like I'm already dealing with dealing with other stuff on the side, and man, it just felt like it just felt like I don't know, it felt personal in some way, Dragon. I know that's insane and silly, but like it felt like, oh come on, like really now? So I had an honestly kind of visceral reaction to it in that regard. It was just not the news I needed to hear.
Yeah. Asner. He was up there for sure. Died at 91. Again, much like Stan Lee, kind of seemed to be immortal to a degree. I mean, he had Doug days on the horizon. I mean, literally like 3 days from when he passed. I was like, it was the last thing I considered honestly. I mean,
Doug
like
Days
there's
is like his Black Star. Anyone who's a David Bowie fan will get that reference. It's like I feel like Doug Days, the timing on it is just kind of crazy. Black Star is a David Bowie album where he contemplated his own death and mortality, released literally a day after he died.
So
So
yeah, so I mean, this is like the last thing on my mind of people potentially going next of all the people we've been
right.
losing within the past couple of years, and I was here's the thing, I was out when it happened, so I was informed. I was just informed while I was out doing stuff, and like completely taken completely off
Yeah,
guard. Like, wait,
same. I
what?
just got it. I just got it on a Facebook
Yeah,
message.
or Our buddy, well, I got it from you and Jacob at the same time simultaneously. It just
Oh
like
man.
it's like wait, Jacob, our buddy Jacob Well, he tells me Ed Asner's passed. I'm typing in the Skype like what with an
Uh-huh.
exclamation point. Then I hear it from you asking what all the logistics of doing what we're doing here tonight. And it's like, oh my! I was completely blindsided by it, and here's the thing: I was a little shell shocked, as I had been with some of the other major passings. But I mean, there was an initial like an anger. There's like, oh come on! Like I kind of a light, not a punch, but like a light tap of wherever it was in the store. Like, come on! And because it was upsetting. It was the fact that you kind of get angry that these great people have kind of left the world, but then you accept the inevitability of it
I
all. And
mean,
again,
like you
just
said, man, the timing of it with Doug Days is like the most upsetting thing
yeah.
about it, honestly.
And yeah, it just really hurts because I was about to enjoy more Ed Asner, and
Hmm.
now he's
Hmm.
gone. It just really, it really hurt. But I mean, in the grand scheme, it makes sense. I mean, he's getting up there. It was natural causes. It was,
I mean, it's
it's.
definitely going to make Doug Days a more kind of somber and must-watch affair.
Let me tell you something crazy, okay? Now
Yeah.
that one obviously will have that heady cloud over it. That literally, kind of a ghost of Ed Asner of something, kind of a tribute piece to him. Hopefully, we'll
Mhm.
see. I doubt it. I doubt that show would go south, but um, I checked this. Apparently, there's going to be a lot of posthumous Ed Asner film
I mean,
releases.
I'm not surprised because
Do you
the
wager
dude
to
is
guess
just
how many?
he was a workaholic his whole life. So yeah, I'm
T-
not surprised we're getting more of him.
Take a guess at how many.
I'm gonna say 9.
Nope.
Higher.
Yeah.
Oh my god, 20.
Okay, not that high.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know. 15.
Very
Meet you in the
close.
middle.
13.
Oh my god.
I mean, that's just movies. I mean, for all I know, add television into it,
That's
maybe. I mean,
just
obviously,
movies?
that's 13
Oh,
movies, and
good
I assume,
Christ. Oh
I
man.
assume
Like you
up to
see guys that
2023.
right there, Dragon, that right there. I feel like that is like a bigger compliment to the man than any sort of like Hallmark card sentiment could ever be. I mean, that God, it really speaks to his work ethic. And as we'll be getting into with this, it's just the roles that he left us with are just as iconic as they are varied and multidimensional. And so anyways,
Right.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm kind of cutting you off at the knees as I tend to do. Continue.
Well, yeah, it's just I mean, Asner has said beautifully in an interview once that he wanted to go out on the stage, so to speak. And I mean, it's not precisely on the stage, but it's as close as you're going to get to that, as in like with where we are now in productions on things. So I mean, he got a whole lot in there
Uh-huh.
towards the end. I mean, the releases are going to up to definitely 2023. I assume beyond that. That's not even factoring any additional TV stuff he has beyond Doug
Which, I
Days.
mean,
I'm just
knowing
saying
him,
that's
there's probably
yeah.
another crazy amount of TV stuff.
Now, mind you, I don't expect these to be, extensive roles, and some of them might be like Hallmark
Of
and
course,
Lifetime
sure.
movies, for all I know. I mean,
Yeah,
I saw him
sure,
pop up in
sure.
one recently from a recent thing, but I don't know if, like, if all of that's there or not. But the point
I
being,
mean,
still,
he like you said, he's a character actor. He pops
yeah.
up in one scene roles all the time.
And
Sure.
again, we've seen him do excellent work with those one
Uh-huh.
scene roles. And
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
me, folks, as much as I'd love to get into more and more of those, we can't go over everything because, again, the man has, without counting the unfinished projects, and I am giving you a firm number,
Oh
over
God.
400 pieces
Oh
collective.
man.
Over 400 without even adding the 13 or however many TV shows are left. 400, like at least 417 or something.
That's insane. That's
It's
honestly
crazy.
insane.
All right. Okay, so let's ask this. What was your introduction to Ed Asner, Tiki?
So this is honestly a hard question to put a definitive answer to because I it's definitely got to be something with voice acting, and I think Dragon, if I had like gun to my head, I would probably say Cosgrove, honestly.
Yeah, for me it was kind of a three-pronged trident. I mean, here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
Cosgrove stuck out most, but technically, it would have to be Roland Daggett from Batman the Animated Series because logically, with the block, it would be Batman followed by Freakazoid, so it would have to be
Oh
Batman
man.
first. So
You see, this is what I'm talking about with Asner. It's like when talking about the first role that you saw him, it's not what what was the first year or what was the first day. It's like, what time was the
Yeah.
first time that you saw him?
Just so
That's
yeah, I had
ridiculous.
so with the Trident, I had these three great animated
Okay.
shows they was all in. So you had Cosgrove and Freakazoid, you had J. Jonah Jameson from the Spider-Man animated
Uh,
series, and Roland Daggett, and three very different and distinct roles. The cold businessman, the newsman like Lou Grant in J. Jonah Jameson's case,
uh-huh.
and I feel most personal. Cosgrove was literally modeled after Ed Asner in design and cadence
Sure,
and
sure.
everything. So that's the most personal. That to me was like the best introduction I could ever have
Yeah,
forged
and
with Ed
I
Asner.
feel
I
the
feel.
same way.
Yeah,
Cosgrove, like I don't think I had like I don't have like an encyclopedic memory of Freakazoid like you do.
yeah,
But Freakazoid was one of those shows like I always like when it was on, and as you know, it had a very bizarre airing schedule, so it was kind of a treat to catch it.
yep.
Cosgrove was definitely an element of it that really stuck out to me as a kid. So yeah, I would definitely say Cosgrove was my introductory point for him.
Yeah, I mean Cosgrove just very respectable, very direct, and hilarious because of his opposite and the very energetic Freakazoid on all these silly dialogue filled tangents.
Uh-huh. All
Yep.
right. So
All of that.
Dragon, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just lastly, so so all of
Yeah.
that, like the Cosgrove, it all really helps connect the dots to when you realize who he is. That connects the dots to Lou Grant. Like, wait a minute, this guy on this show looks remarkably like Cosgrove, and then it kind of goes on from there. And the voice
It's
the
kind of like the
voiceovers of the TV.
Flintstones honeymooners thing.
Pretty much, yes. I mean, that was like when I first put the pieces together, and oh my god, Lou Grant looks exactly like Cosgrove, and I know this man, I know this voice, and you go on from there. It just yeah,
So yeah, sitcoms are not really my forte. If I didn't grow up with him on Nick at Night, and Mary Tyler Moore for some reason was not really on the Nick at Night rotation. I don't know why, but it's honestly just kind of luck of the draw. It's like I have very fond memories of stuff like Cheers, Gilligan's Island, I Love Lucy, but I didn't really grow up with it. As you know, I'm not really one for episodic TV. But Mary Tyler Moore, obviously, we've covered a couple Christmas specials on Christmas in July. That's honestly most of the exposure I have to the Lou Grant character outside of the show. And granted, the show had a very memorable Christmas in July, which we'll get to. But you want to just kind of touch on the Lou Grant of it all and the Mary Tyler Moore because I really feel like I have a very surface level knowledge of it.
well, yeah, sure. So it's something that so two things I want to note here. So Ed Asner has a really, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be. I think they have to wait till this year for it to be possibly surpassed, but I find it very doubtful. He holds a big record in the tomes of TV history. Tiki, he has won the most Emmys,
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
7 Emmys.
Nice. Wow.
I don't know if they were
Wow.
consistent. They might have been honestly. They possibly might have been consecutive, but at the very
I
least, he's won
honestly
seven
don't know
Emmys.
why I didn't know that. That's an impressive feat.
He's won. Here's what he's won him for. Pretty much, Mary Tyler Moore. I don't know if Lou Grant the show got an Emmy, but at the very
Uh-huh.
least, Mary Tyler Moore, and then two other things. It was Roots for like I guess like limited miniseries, and Rich Man Poor Man, which I don't know if that was a TV movie or a show. I haven't seen that, but that was the other thing he got the Emmy for. So 7 Emmys.
Nice.
I
Nice.
want to say an Emmy for I forget how long Mary Tyler Moore was on for, but the point being, long long run anyway. So yeah, so Ed Asner, the way he gets to Mary Tyler Moore is he was a character actor. Basically, he kind of started on the scene play after the New York pretty much the standard thing where he was a New York theater actor that moved on to L.A. for getting into the TV business, which then gave him a few movies and such. And he played the bad guys. He was the heavy. He was either the bad guy or the cop, which as you can see definitely bled into a memorable role for us. And this kind of drew the attention of Mary Tyler Moore, who was very much behind her own show, and they sought him out. He auditioned. He bombed the audition. You know why?
Why?
He played it like a drama because
Oh
that's what he
boy.
was used to. He was a big dramatic actor. I mean, a little bit of comedy experience. So then he
That's
switched.
interesting that you mentioned that because one of the things that I was comparing his career to was Leslie Nielsen, who I feel like kind of went on a very similar trajectory.
Yeah, yeah. We play him straight, and that's where the comedy gets mined.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. After a few they had some disastrous live tapings for the pilot episode, which just did not go well. But eventually things worked out, and then we have I think the scene that just kind of showed you we're gonna be okay. It's as Brad Bird would call it, it's the wood fire pizza mode. We're gonna be okay. We
Wait,
can
the wood
sit
fire
back.
pizza moment? What?
Yeah. Remember Brad Bird's talking about Pixar success? Like it's like you invented you're resting on the laurels
I
of the wood
actually
fire
don't
pizza.
remember this. Refresh my memory
Yeah,
on
it's a
it.
great story. Yeah, Brad Bird, he was giving one of his big rallying speeches when he first came to Pixar for The
Uh-huh.
Incredibles. And he says, I know you guys, after all these successes, you're in wood fire pizza mode right now. And he basically samples like, yeah, as he's pretending to eat the pizza. Yeah, it can't get any better than this. And you're basically going to get stagnant and potentially lazy if you rest on your laurels. That's kind of the point of the whole thing. It's a great speech.
Okay, okay.
Anyway, sorry. It's in. I think they got it in the Pixar story. If you ever want to see it, so
Uh-huh.
I think it's. I'm pretty sure it's in there. Anyway, so anyways, then we have the iconic, the iconic scene where then we get everything's gonna be okay. The iconic job interview scene. I mean, have you ever seen this clip?
I don't think so. I probably have just through pop culture osmosis.
Right. So basically, very simple. Mary is, she's given her job interview, and the idea is they're kind of mismatching their questions here, where he's asking some personal questions, and also like I believe if I recall, she entered as a secretary, then worked her way up to like station manager and all that sort of stuff. So in the beginning, she's like, like how many words do you type, and like, do you have any? It was some other person like, do you date or something like that, and that's a tough question. Like you can't asking all these questions. How hard could it be? It's like 65. My typing question. Can you please answer the questions in the order that I ask them?
Uh-huh.
Because she keeps growing up anyway. So she's standing up to him being the point. And this basically signed off on the show being great, where she stands up to him and says, "You know what? You've got spunk.
Oh yeah, of
I
course
hate
I see
spunk."
that.
So that's the job interview scene. It's from the very first episode. That's
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, Dragon pop culture osmosis. I
yeah.
feel like that's like that's like iconic TV for
That's the line that
sure.
made him an icon, Tiki. I
Uh-huh.
would argue that that's the line that basically made him the Fonzie of Mary Tyler Moore. He
Sure,
was the.
sure.
I think the key to Lou Grant is that a lot of people signal the father figure thing, but he was America's boss, and he was more importantly the epicenter of the craziness. He was the boss. Everyone had to come to him, including these crazy characters like Ted Baxter. And the hilarious thing about Ted Baxter, Ted Knight, just given like basically Link Hogthrob was inspired by Ted Knight, Tiki. So that's him. It's just they had that bit of he Ed Asner wants to fire this guy. Lou Grant wants to fire him, but he can't because he's like the lead newsman, so he has to incur all this man's idiocy. So he just has
Uh-huh.
to. Anyway. So you know what the crazy thing about Mary Tyler Moore is though?
Huh.
All the actors but Betty White are gone now.
Huh.
Asner was essentially the last holdout. Now the burden falls to
Yeah,
Betty
Betty
White.
White, man, she's hanging in there.
She's the last survivor of Mary Tyler Moore. It's kind of scary.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So again, the patriarch of the newsroom. Now, in between, again, Mary Tyler Moore really makes a name for himself. He's getting some Emmys, and that brings him the Roots. Do you know anything about Roots by any chance?
I know very, very surface level, like pretty much the most, again, like with the pop culture osmosis of it all. I know the
Sure.
iconic scene, and that's
You
about
and
it.
I are on the same. No pun intended. You and I
Yeah.
are in the same boat with Roots. See, so that's the thing. So I saw in school when I was a kid, I saw the first episode of Roots, and I was always mesmerized by it. But this is before like we had the advent of streaming and everything, and seeking out Roots. And I was interested, but I wasn't like interested enough to go out and buy the DVD set. I was just interested of like if it came on, I would watch it. He played the conflicted boat captain of the slave ship. Like he was the guy kind of
Oh,
rethinking his position on slavery as he kind of
that
bonded with
sounds
him.
like a compelling role because it's a relatively like mutual role.
Yeah, I think
Uh-huh.
again, second to Lou Grant, it was kind of the biggest role that again, his roles kind of got bigger. Again, you say rarely in life did Ed Asner get lead roles. Very, very rarely. On one hand, you could count the lead roles the man had.
Sure,
So
sure.
Captain Tom Davies, he was again. It was an arc that endlessly fascinated me, and the thing that bugged me is in school, it ended on the cliffhanger of he was about to, kind of basically bond with the slave woman who's I believe sent to his quarters for uncouth purposes. But if I recall, I saw a little bit of the second one. It did not go south like you thought it was. He was actually chatting with her and everything. And then again, I was so instantly fascinated. How does the rest of it go? And I could easily look it up now. So I would. I don't know if I'm going to get to that now because Roots is a heavy watch, man. It's a heavy watch.
That's exactly why I haven't watched it. Yeah.
That's the thing. So I one day maybe, but a point being, that character endlessly fascinated me on Roots. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about the big, like, this never happens, Tiki. And even in the advent of our beloved Better Call Saul, one could argue this still never really happens. We have one of the most ambitious spin-offs ever, where you have, okay, we're going to go from a very, very popular Emmy-winning comedy and one of your Fonzie of that show and Lou Grant, and we're going to give him a spin-off, but it's going to be an hour. It's instead of a half-hour comedy, it's going to be an hour-long drama with Lou Grant as the main character.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, it's definitely an outlier in that regard.
I mean, that never happens. I mean, we're lucky that we have something close to that with, like, hey, we're going to give Saul Goodman, the spin-off show. It's going to be a
I feel
prequel. It's
like Better
actually going to
Call
work.
Saul kind of like we were expecting it to be the half-hour comedy, and it
Yeah,
ended
we were
up
expecting
being
the
an
opposite
hour-long
of it. Yeah,
drama. But but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, Lou Grant. I've only ever seen the one episode, but I mean, from what I've seen, it's still one of the most memorable Christmas in Julys we've covered, just on the basis of just the sheer pathos and the Christmas spirit of it all.
Yeah, yeah. I think it really demonstrated the strength of that character, and they were very lucky that Asner, again, as the thing that kind of almost kind of lost in the role, the fact that he had a background in the dramatic, that they lucked out. Like, oh man, thank goodness we can do a drama with this guy. Okay,
Sure,
he's going to be
sure.
able to carry the weight on this. And
It
I saw
definitely feels like a show of its time, something like kind of close to MASH. Is that accurate
that is a good. It's like Mash in a
as far as
newsroom,
tone goes?
like kind of like Mash in a newsroom. Sure, yeah,
Uh,
it's like it's in the Vietnam era, if I because we had like a Vietnam vet episode. I'm gonna get it was like this is
yeah, and
1980,
I'm
so
way more familiar with MASH. MASH is
yeah,
I didn't grow up with that on Nick at Night, but I definitely like watched that on reruns as a teen. So
yeah. Alan, I love what I've seen of Alan Alda and Mash. I
oh
have
yeah,
not seen.
oh
I
yeah.
have not watched the show though. That's the thing. I mean,
You
but
know
yeah, I
that
think
Survivor guy who was on Seinfeld?
Get Out.
No, no, no. He always gets compared to Alan Alda.
Oh, okay. Well, so that's less exciting, but okay. For a second,
I'm
do you remember
sorry.
that one guy? Like he or his father was in Mash.
No, 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 no. He's just like he's very much known as like the Alan Alda of the Survivor community, like with his
Gotcha.
cadence and everything.
Right, right.
Anyways,
Anyway, so the point being, it was a relevant show that, by all means, probably should have flopped if you really think about it, because it was also a political show, and that not necessarily being like really dicey or anything. It was the fact that it was talking about very relevant issues of the time, like poverty, homelessness, vets coming back from the war, that sort of stuff. And it
uh-huh.
worked. And again, the ratings were rather good on, again, coasting off the Mary Tyler Moore of it all. And also, the important thing to transition us here, Lou Grant plays a very significant role in this is Ed Asner at the height of his career. Lou Grant is again he's leading a show right now. He is a lead actor in a show that is based on his character. This is the initial height of his fame, and then
Sure.
well, some bad happens.
Yeah, and I don't know much about this. All I read was like a quick Wikipedia summary of something about like AIDS advocacy or something like that.
Something like yeah. Let me explain it. So
Okay.
the simple, straightforward way of putting it is that so Ed Asner in life, he's very much he was a real salt of the earth guy. He had odd jobs all over the place. He you know he was a union man. He always supported the union man. The underdog. So 1980 rolls around while he's doing Lou Grant, and again his popularity is at a height, and he becomes people are protesting against the Screen Actors Guild, so he becomes the president of the Screen Actors Guild, another feather in Ed Asner's cap, but that's soon going to turn to a feather that's been lit on fire. But
Oh God! Wow,
um,
that's very traumatic.
so the point being, he became president of the Screen Actors Guild for about 2 years. Well, from 80 to I guess 82. So in 82, uh, a lot of Reagan business is going on. With this communism and a lot of stuff overseas.
Uh-huh.
Basically, there was this conflict in El Salvador. I don't know much about it. I'm not as much a historian on this sort of thing, but essentially there was, I don't know if it was like a civil war sort of conflict or whatnot, but there was like a war going on in El Salvador, and these the people from El Salvador were were not doing well. Basically, a nun told Ed Asner like all this bad stuff's happening over there. Can you help? And he did. He supported the El Salvador crisis. He donated a lot of money. He kind of led some rallies. He basically gave his support. And the actors who were part of the SAG, they didn't like that their president was speaking for the organization on
Hmm.
on like what essentially has been interpreted as an anti-Reagan, anti-American stance. So they were so a lot of the very politically minded SAG
Oh,
members.
how
Like,
times have not changed.
that's the sad part. So you see, so it's essentially it got really bad. Where again, over the dumbest thing in my opinion, where
Yeah.
it's just like as and what made it worse is that
How
Asner didn't,
dare you give goodwill to other struggling nations in our
because
name?
that's
That's
simply what it
something
was.
we don't want.
Because all they did was like fund medical supplies and stuff to help them
That
out because they
literally,
were
oh
yeah.
man.
And
Yeah,
the
like I said, Dragon, I'll just say that funny how times have not changed and leave it at that.
sure. And so again, suffice it to say, the actors didn't like it. There was this really the nail in the coffin was that he basically didn't denounce communism. He didn't really support it, but he didn't say "Wait, no, I'm not taking a stance on it." So he just kind of that was like the thing that led him to impeach him. And then Lou Grant got bomb threats. It was
Oh
not
boy.
pretty. His family needed protection, and again, the show was flourishing. People were still tuning into the show. The show was great, but the head honchos who ran the network were like, "This guy's anti-Reagan. Why is this show still on the air?" They canceled it for really
Sure.
BS reasons, and there was guilt for Asner. His family was in danger. The crew are now without jobs, and this led to Ed Asner being blacklisted in the industry. That's why there's like a long stretch of that's what leads Ed Asner to voice acting. That's the only work he could get,
Hmm.
which
I
is
mean, it
it's
is kind of like a happy accident, though, right? Because
yeah.
I feel like voice acting is kind of that's certainly where I know him the most from. I feel like that's certainly where a lot of his legacy is going to thrive from. Outside of the Mary Tyler Moore of it all.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story, and you're right though, there is a silver lining in that it's more of like it's less like the end of something, more like back to square one. And there were rough
Uh-huh.
times, like am I going to be able to find like book a gig, to help the family and everything. But it's like I think the moral of the story is looking back on things. This now is like a footnote in things because we love, like a whole generation knows Ed Asner from this slew of things, and it's the fact that honestly, the next generation doesn't really care about the politics of the past. It's always whatever new politics are going
Sure.
on. It's like it's sadly circled back with cancel culture. Essentially, Ed Asner was kind of originally, he was canceled before we had a stupid word for it. It was
Yeah,
like
it's like I said, it's crazy how that works.
I know, and it's at the end of the day, it doesn't factor into the entertainment that much. Really, it doesn't really matter. It's like, okay, so we helped the people of El Salvador. This was a problem. Did we, you know? We said a president wasn't taking a nice stance, I guess, kind of. Anyway,
Yeah,
so point being, this leads to what I like to refer to as Ed Asner's rebirth through animation and the guest spots. This is where Ed Asner has like the major bona fides to to the television scene. It's kind of like goes on and on. It's awesome.
yeah, and so I mean, God, there's a ton to get to. So, with the Spider-Man stuff, Dragon. I mean, I don't, I haven't really sat down and watched it, but his Uncle Ben sounds just super on point. Like, I really liked what I saw of his Uncle Ben.
Yeah, so I showed now you didn't miss much because that was he only appeared in one episode for that
Okay.
flashback. It was very much for that one episode. It was so we're talking about Spectacular
I mean,
Spider-Man
I
and
gotta say, just even out of context, like just the way he delivers it, the cadence and everything, like it is. I'm not gonna say it's better than Cliff Robinson, but it rivals Cliff Robinson.
And clearly, it's taking the lines from Cliff Robertson.
Of
So
course, of
obviously, there's a
course,
little bit.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I love that. Honestly, I think it's possibly the best Uncle Ben use for basically the way we did is we used Uncle Ben to defeat the Black Suit. Basically, the Black Suit's influence over Peter, over Spider-Man,
Which I
the whole
really
symbiote.
dug.
Yeah, and I like that. That's what I'm saying to you. There's like echoes of Raimi. We kind of like, what if we took the car scene from Spider-Man 2, we gave it even more purpose? With just this wise kind of conscience in like an angel devil situation with the symbiote as the devil and the angel's Uncle Ben. They're both motivated by the death of Uncle Ben. So
Uh-huh.
that's what's really interesting about that. It does circle back to the character. It's a very effective use of the Uncle Ben tradition in Spider-Man, and it's a dream casting getting Ed Asner in for that role. I think it's very emotional closure for Peter Parker, who never really got to say goodbye to Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben kind of saved him from beyond the grave. It was a beautiful moment in that series.
Definitely.
And basically, it's like towards the finale of the first season too.
I will admit his Jameson to me is a little off, but that's just because like in my ears I literally can't like Jameson and J.K. Simmons' voice are like synonymous with each other. You know what I mean? It's like
True, true, but
I
take
just
that's
can't differentiate it. But I mean, as far as casting goes, it makes total sense with the with Luke Grant and all.
that's the thing, though. I mean, I absolutely hear and I agree with you. But here's the thing:
But I mean,
this,
obviously he did it first, so I
yeah,
can't even, it's not like it's, like, oh, like how dare you come along and do a role before the most iconic version of the role was done.
yeah, like pre J.K. Simmons, this was the best Jameson. That's the thing, you know. And here's the
Well, I
one
mean, it's
thing.
certainly better than '60s Jameson.
Yeah, that's what I'm not saying there was much competition, but I'm saying like
Yeah.
this was your iconic J. Jonah Jameson before we got J.K. Simmons, doing the Lord's work.
Oh.
So that's the thing though. I love that what we do have with this Jameson. The one thing we have not explored with J.K. Simmons, we do get with this Jameson, that there was an element of pathos with this Jameson at times. I'm going to give you two examples.
Okay.
Very simple. Okay, so the big one, they adapted the Scorpion story, where traditionally, at the very least of the animated series, the Scorpion was a creation of J. Jonah Jameson to fight Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
And the reason they actually got into this, which I think it was in the comics, but they kind of made it really, they tied into an episode really well, where the reason they gave a reason to why J. Jonah Jameson hates Spider-Man. It was really moving. J. Jonah Jameson hates Spider-Man because he wears a mask, and his wife was gunned down by a man in a mask.
Mm.
And that's kind of like he has this thing where he's lamenting, "Oh God,
that's actually pretty damn profound."
It is, and this is like the third or fourth. It's like early in the first season. It's really good. Yeah, it's
it's like
just
the
this
anti Bruce Wayne philosophy.
Yeah, and it's this wonderful moment of like he's like telling Robbie this after, oh my God, Robbie, I created the Scorpion, and he's like, Jonah, why did you do it? And it's beautiful. Ed Asner's acts this scene so wonderfully, and a more lighter side of things. There are moments where, again, he'll be kind of father figurely, but again, more out of spite, which is hilarious and on brand for Jameson. Where when we did the wedding of Peter Parker and Mary Jane, the Kingpin and J. Jonah Jameson were bickering over who was going to pay for the wedding. As in Jameson basically like he didn't want to get shown up by Wilson Fisk of like, I run this paper, I should pay for this. What it's a whole it was delightful. And there was like a whole episode we gave J. Jonah Jameson a PI episode where he becomes Jigsaw Jameson. It's
oh my God.
It's a whole that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of fun with Asner as Jameson. Anyway. So again, love the Spider-Man work has been remarkably on point. It's never really fallen flat. And again, just the fact that we got an actor from the animated series to be in Spectacular Spider-Man as Uncle Ben, that's really sweet too.
Yeah.
All
right. So Hudson from Gargoyles. I haven't really watched the show, but I mean, from the clips you sent me, he definitely seems like a pivotal character.
Yeah. He was kind of like he's the wise Solomon. Basically, he's like the uncle. He's kind of Uncle Iroh-ish, like kind of yeah.
I mean, I really Scottish. He kind of feels like almost Yoda-ish in the way that he's like like over 1,000 years old. He's got like that's the big theme of like age and experience is kind of prevalent for what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks to that transitional phase with the voice acting roles. Where think about it, Ed Asner is taking the task like any character actor would be in this new form. Like, hey, you have this new tool. You only have your voice to do the acting. You do not have, you don't have all the kind of the accoutrements of being on a set and having your cast members in the room with you. It's like a whole new ball game. So they kind of make that transition. Also, kind of you're not as young as you used to be, so you can't get all the roles. But in animation, you get any role you want. And we made him like a centuries old gargoyle, a Scottish gargoyle at that. Yeah, I always loved there was an element too where he befriended a blind man in the series who basically initially he did not know he was a gargoyle, and then the Hudson character for an arc he went blind, which is really interesting.
Oh, nice.
Because he if you notice in the design, he has like a scratched out eye, so he's already half blind. Then something happened that made him blind in the other eye, and they had to kind of deal with that for a few episodes. I can't say enough nice things about gargoyles, but I love that in the scene I sent you, he impressed David Xanatos with his philosophies on immortality, and like it's about what you do with your time on Earth that makes you immortal. Really good stuff. Good writer.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, next, Cosgrove. Now, we spoke a little bit about Cosgrove, and obviously, we constantly talk about Cosgrove, but,
I really don't know what else there's to say about him. He's just, I feel like he's just the ultimate kind of like Leslie Nielsen-esque kind of like the straight man, where it's like him being so straight in his comedy is exactly what makes it so funny.
Yeah, I'll say for posterity's sake, because if any occasion would deem it, it would probably be one last time. I'm a lifelong fan of Commissioner Gordon. There's no secret there, but and I also love that Freakazoid had his own Gordon in the vein of Sergeant Mike Cosgrove.
Uh-huh.
Just the fact that he was also a friend, and they would also kind of hang out at times. And he was Mr. Exposition, but with style. We'd wonderfully dress up the very straightforward story here with like, hey, this absurd mundane side quest, like, hey, Freakazoid, want to go spin on the ice cream land? Hey, Freakazoid, you want to go to the Great Hall of Spackle? You know, boy, would I! It's delightful. He had catchphrases like, "Hey, cut it out." And I think the two Cosgrove moments that will always stick out to me in terms of all the gags. We had Real Life Police, which was the cops parody. Remember when he just chased them down? It's like, hey, put that back. It was just so easy for him. What if Cops was an easy show for Cosgrove? It'd be wonderful. And
Right, yeah.
I think the funniest thing I've seen with Cosgrove, just looking back on it, the Congo gag, the post credit Congo gag is just still to this day hysterical. Hey, Freakazoid, you remember that movie Congo? How do you tell when it's a monkey and then a guy in a monkey suit? Then they go see it and like, so that's a monkey. No, it's a guy in a suit. just wonderful. All right, and sorry, one last thing is I can't for anyone who's not seen Freeze, I'm just going to say this. The wonderful thing about it is that this is the fact that we got Ed Asner. They told him not to act, as they instructed. Okay, listen, don't act, just say the lines, which is in effect. You had this extremely prolific, wonderful actor who's won like 7 Emmys, and we're gonna give him the silliest dialogue, but because he is so legitimized, the world loves him. We will get away with it. And it'll make it like the Leslie Nielsen factor you're bringing up. It'll make it 10 times funnier, and it's just it's wonderful. And it's the fact that he got to play that role one last time in that
Yeah, I was
Titans
going to
thing.
bring that up. It's kind of funny because obviously Teen Titans Go is not the ideal venue for a Freakazoid reunion, but given the circumstances, it is great that we did get one last taste of Mike Cosgrove.
And Cosgrove was on money though. That scene about the maple bar, that was good. If you're gonna give him one last conversation, it was nice. It was nice that we gave that to Asner. That was really meant a great deal to me. Okay. All right, that brings us to so the DC roles overall. Now, Roland Daggett, you remember Roland Daggett a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I don't have a ton to say about him, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah, he's an interesting character.
It's like that he was. The thing I really liked about Roland Daggett is that he was just this ruthless businessman. Again, very much style after Norman Osborn and kind of.
It's interesting that like with Asner, it's like he rarely plays the villain, but when he does it well, and I feel like it's kind of like the dichotomy of like it's like you're so used to him and kind of like the grandpa kind of role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and DC gave him like roles that were all over the place, and that was the really cool thing. You have him as like just kind of a businessman bad guy, and the really cool thing is that this was Batman going up against the threat that he couldn't always beat. Like that Crime Alley episode really breaks my heart when you rewatch it. It's like he stopped him, but he's going to get away. And like Crime Alley is a really personal thing for Batman. Like it was a really effective ending, appointment in Crime Alley for the kids. Anyway, so the most memorable DC AU role for him, Granny Goodness.
Yeah, this was a trip, man. This was I had no idea this existed.
So I believe Granny Goodness, I forget if she was entirely or in season 3 or if she was introduced towards like the end of 2. But yeah, so Granny Goodness is like the lieutenant of Darkseid's lieutenant, like the number 2 in the Apocalypse organization.
I mean, it's just a really fun concept, really outside the box casting.
God, just like Asner, you can tell he's having a blast, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Just hamming it up as this. It's a genius character. It's just the fact that, like, hey, the way they play Granny Goodness, I should say here, which I think is unique to Asner here, is like, let's just take this loving yet sadistic granny that Darkseid randomly is working with, who basically tortures and brainwashes Darkseid's victims into submission, which is just traumatizing as all get out. It's absurd, but also terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just love like that twisted sense of family too. Like take Mr. Miracle. I don't know if you remember that Mr. Miracle clip that was included.
Yeah, I
Just the
do.
fact, yeah, it's that whole thing of just like she refers him. Oh, Scott, you remember like what I did for you? And then
That
we
clip was
flash
distracting just because this is just a stupid me thing, but like every time.
I know the YouTube video thing. Yeah,
What?
you mean the thing where like all the ads popped up at the end, right?
Oh no, that's not what I was just gonna say like the whole Michael Douglas Scott.
All
Like
right.
every time the name Scott was like they say the name Scott a lot. And so in the back of my mind I was like Scott.
Gotta let the Scott thing go.
But that is a very specific me thing.
Right, but still, pretty messed up though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kent Nelson, so Doctor Fate. I always thought the Young Justice had a really great take on Doctor Fate with this legacy
I don't have a
component.
lot to say about this one at all because I didn't really understand what was going on.
Well, yeah, but I mean his scenes though. I mean his acting. I mean it was pretty.
I mean, his acting was great, but I mean, like, just in the context of like, oh, what's going on here? I feel like I'm just jumping right into the story.
Yeah, Young Justice is not exactly the fresh on the boat
Yeah,
show. Like,
I kind of got the vibe of
let me put
that.
it, Young Justice really has to be serialized. You got to watch it from the start. But but it's the really nice thing though about it is that he was just introduced in the episode. You weren't really missing anything from him, but you were missing everything else from like what else was going on though. Like,
Well,
who
like,
are these
yeah, I
characters?
mean, that's the thing.
Yeah,
It's like I
yeah,
just didn't understand the context. I was just like,
yeah,
what is going on here? I don't know.
yeah. But yeah, I like that. We kind of gave Kid Flash a mentor in this Kent Nelson character, and like the idea he was a man mourning his Spitfire of a wife, and it's kind of nice that he actually set Kid Flash up with his relationship with Artemis, the girl that he was teleported with.
Uh-huh.
Like kind of telling him about, you find your own Spitfire, because he kept pursuing the Martian girl in the show. It's like Miss Martian, but when he was really should have been going after her. It was a nice little thing. I think it was a lovely like one episode role for him, so it was good. Now this is something I completely had no idea about. The drift into live action for a bit here. So Jay Leno, I had no idea about this until I did a little research afterwards.
This was delightful. I'll
I
be
thought you
honest.
were gonna love
This kind of
this.
made my day a little bit. And I will say, I will bet good money on this being probably the most funny thing that's ever come out of the Jay Leno show.
I think that's fair. Let's
Because
face it.
Jay Leno, let's face it, man, he is not known as the world's most, most inventive late night host by any means.
We're thinking of the Tonight Show. Let's be honest. We're thinking of Johnny. Never do we think of Jay Leno. Come on.
I mean, I'm thinking of Conan before I'm thinking of Johnny, just because Conan got robbed of that gig, but that's a different story.
Well, sure. I'm speaking specifically of the ones that we did get on the Tonight Show. So
Well, I mean, Conan technically.
Wait, did he? What did he ever truly host the Tonight Show, or was?
Yes.
Well, I don't mean guests. I mean, was he actually given the show?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so he was given the show for a bit.
Dragon, he was given the show. Oh God, it's a long story, but
I know. I'm aware. I'm fuzzy on the Conan part of the story. I know, like the whole.
Conan was given the show for a while, but then Leno was basically being a diva about it. Like, well, you got to give me a show right after Conan, and you got to mess with the schedule, and it just.
Gotcha.
It messed everything up. I don't want to get into the details.
No. That's fine.
Conan O'Brien. Conan O'Brien is a beautiful man and a comedy icon of mine. Anyways.
Gotcha. All right, that's fine. Because I remember like the war being between Leno and Letterman. I forgot about the O'Brien.
Oh no, Conan! Yeah. I feel like Conan and Leno, like Leno and Letterman, was more of like a professional rivalry, whereas Conan and Leno was more personal.
Yeah, that I did not know. So okay,
yeah.
Might look into that later. So, anyways,
I can send you some links.
Okay, well, all right, sure. So, Jay Leno had this segment called "Does This Impress Ed Asner?" That's pretty much what you'd think. So Ed Asner comes out, I believe, in like a tuxedo, and he's and I had no idea about this. This is a whole segment that basically celebrates the charm of Ed Asner. It's this witty, cute, fun little kind of thing where he roasts these weird acts that basically
is Ed like impressed. America's Got Talent before America's Got Talent.
This is an America's Got Talent I can get behind. I gotta be honest. Just like I could have gotten behind. Let's just take a beloved classic, the celebrity, in this case Ed Asner, and let's just see. It's like it reminds me of that joke from Seth MacFarlane's Oscars, and the quest to make Tommy Lee Jones laugh begins now. now.
Right.
You know, it's like, what if we actually took that as our premise? Like, okay, that was a wonderful discovery, for sure.
All right.
All right, so again, look, folks, there are gobs of other roles, both live action,
Oh
anime.
my
I could
god,
bring up,
yeah, we'd literally be here all night.
I could bring up Captain Planet or Buzz Lightyear Star Command,
Captain
but
Planet was a big one for me, where I was like, "Wait, what? That character design is iconic."
yeah, Hoggish Screedley, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Also, one mutual thing for us, we should just name drop. We don't have to talk about it, we should name drop it because it connects to us. My friend Martin, our friend Martin, he was the
I
principal.
mean, it's not a very flattering role. That's obviously not his fault, but yeah.
Oh, sure, no, that was the alternate universe version, though. He was there in the positive sense, and then we turned him in the full negative when we messed with time in a Martin Luther King animated film for children. So, sorry, I just want to say it out loud just for context. Yes, folks, we did a time traveling movie about Martin Luther King. We did that.
Oh, God bless the 90s.
Yes, but okay. Anyway, so again, we can go on all day. But like, he was in Buzz Lightyear Star Command for an episode. There's a lot we could do, but let's focus on some of the bigger stuff here. So here's a role that was very important to Ed Asner. One of his favorite roles to ever play was Santa Claus, and he played a lot.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting. The fact that an actor was basically able to have kind of like a stock in the Santa Claus role.
Yeah. I like the thing. I can't substantiate this. I mean, I'm sure there's an interview out there somewhere. Ed Asner did a lot of prolific interviews. I mean, there's a lot of them. I'd like to think he played Santa Claus because it highlighted the non-grumpy side of himself that he had been known for up to that time, as playing the opposite. But even when he did play, I'm not saying he didn't occasionally play a grumpy Santa Claus, but every Santa Claus he played, from what I've seen, had an interesting slant to them. You know, I mean, obviously the big one for you and I recently being the Christmas Star, being the most interesting take on a Santa Claus from him.
Sure.
But I mean, I think the iconic one, Elf, the Santa and Elf.
I don't have a huge attachment to Elf. I've only seen it a couple times, unlike most people of my generation, so...
Well, I mean, I like that we took an icon and we modeled him after the iconic Coca-Cola Santa. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, where of all the Santas to pull from, that was a Santa with a little bit of grit of like, he had a soft spot for kids, with like taking in the baby, the buddy, the baby and turn him into an elf, that whole thing. And the third act is being fueled by a Santa who's kind of dealing with, man, Christmas spirit is literally holding me back from making my rounds right now. What am I going to do? Just Santa with a problem, and he's had that cheery demeanor about him. Then we have something like Olive the Other Reindeer.
Yeah, that's a pretty memorable one.
Yeah. I love that. He's dealing with like fake hate mail, and he basically is a nice guy who gives the underdog, in this case, literally a dog named Olive, a shot, and it pans out. We saved Christmas. We gave this dog with the delusions of being a reindeer a chance, and it saved Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Then that brings us. I'm sorry. Then that brings us to the Christmas Star, which again unconventional. Santa Claus who's a crook. Yeah, this one really dazzled us. Do you remember that?
You know what? I'm having a hard time really. I remember it, but I don't remember many specifics. We see, obviously, you and I watch a lot of Christmas movies. They kind of blend into each other. The concept of Santa Claus being a crook kind of blends in with some of the other stuff, the Bryan Cranston one. So,
oh yeah, right.
I'm sorry, Dragon. I wish I had more to say.
Right. Okay. Well, just to put it simply, just to sum it up, just basically thoughts on it. Yeah. I liked that we saw, he was a crook who basically lives up to his disguise. He was just this crook with a beard who puts on a Santa suit, and he kind of becomes this jolly figure for the kids. And he's kind of inspired to he sees the potential for good in these kids that he denied to himself. And I thought it was a great holiday arc for Santa Claus. I think it's the most, and one of the very few leading roles for him, being the lead in that film. So it's interesting,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on. Okay, now we've gotten through the vegetables. Now it's time for the meat of the piece here. Let's talk about Up.
So yeah, that first montage you sent me has that clip of him talking about Carl Fredricksen and just how meaningful the role was for him, kind of like finding life after a tragedy that seems like it would be just world ending. So definitely very meaningful there.
Yeah, he's he's that interview, Tiki, is really worth looking into. He brought up some amazing things about his experience working on the film. For example, like after the film, he had a brother who went through a similar experience of Carl, where he lost his wife, and he actually found he kind of found the will to live again. He met a woman, and he kind of was able to find happiness again. It was kind of this nice little. It was kind of a nice little art imitating life in a sense. I mean, Up is a personal film, I think, for a lot of people, myself included. It's second to Toy. It's
I
my
mean, how could it
second.
not be?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not the most original kind of thought here, but it's. I think we all see something in the film, whether we are the old person in question, whether we are just we're seeing our grandparents in the role, which I definitely see my grandfather in this, and Carl Fredricksen, both in design and everything. I see a lot of that. I think everyone has a bit of that, and the important thing is that Carl is not a chatty character. So when he does speak, it should mean something, and you can't do better than Asner in that role, that legitimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And let me, did you in that interview? Did it tell you how he got the role?
No.
Yeah, it's amazing how he got the role. Tiki. They kind of had like this impromptu audition where he was doing a play for like a Jewish organization, like doing like a fundraiser sort of thing, and he was reading. I don't know if he's reading or performing it. This play called Number of People, and oh, anyway, so yeah, so he was
Just
he
keep
was he,
going.
what?
Just keep going.
Right, right. Anyways, yeah, so he did this play called Number of People, and he read the script, and Pete Docter and Bob Peterson attended this benefit, I guess, and basically the role was a Holocaust survivor with dementia. And I assume that, along with kind of the years of just kind of like loving him as Lou Grant, and God knows all the other various roles, really kind of stuck out to him, and it was sort of this perfect. It was kind of this perfect audition for him. Like, we have to get this man for the role. I mean, we have this character. I think he could very well fit into this, and the universal charm and relatability is kind of it all came into place. Yeah, and he actually hurt himself during the record.
Oh dear.
Yeah, yeah. He fell, and he had this giant. It's amazing that he hurt himself from the voice acting job. That's the thing that astonishes me, really. Yeah, yeah. He had gashed his head really really big and everything, and he basically he went to the hospital. They stitched him up, and amazingly he came back and he finished the recording session. The man was a champ. He really cared about this role, and I think it shows.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. So Asner, he's
Dragon, if you wanna just like do a like you can go through his last roles. I kind of want to just wrap it up
right,
for obvious reasons.
right, right. Gotcha. Okay. So folks, so we have Asner has reached his final roles this year. So he has like I love that he went out on three really interesting roles. Which, to put it simply, he was on Cobra Kai, which is nothing to sneeze at. He played Johnny's stepdad, essentially the author and creator of the '80s bully that we all know and are trying to work our way past in the Cobra Kai show. And I really love that he weaponized Asner's honesty stamp of honesty. He's a very the character of Sid was never wrong about Johnny, but he was just really cruel about the way he went about it. He was never wrong about his screw ups in life, but that didn't really give him the right to be that cruel to him, which again fed the fire into the man's kind of own failures and such, which he's been working his way back from. Now, Dead to me is a role that really stuck out to me. This is one of the most recent things he's done. I think going back to maybe last year or so. It's a great dark comedy. He basically is Linda Cardellini's friend in the nursing home that she assists at. He's a kindly old man named Abe. He kind of sees the good in her soul. He gives like her boyfriend he has her number. Like he says like what that guy's a POS. Like he just calls him out. Doesn't like him. It's really funny, but we find he actually has a really good point. I think summing that up, it's just Ed Asner had this great thing where he says people need people. And I think that's what that show was, and I think he really brought that out nicely. And lastly, we already kind of talked about some of this up front, but we're getting Doug days next. And Ed Asner, he loved Doug in the movie Up, so I'm sure he was delighted to come back to this. And the crazy thing is that this is a role that really returned him the prominence in a big way. 12 years later, he's coming back 12 years to play Carl. Just kind of crazy. I'd like to think he's fulfilled with this. I'd like to think he went out with his boots on the stage. He's of returning to this character that brought him a lot of joy that I really cared about. And yeah, so I guess I should wrap it up then, right, Tiki? Or
Yeah, guys, I'm really sorry. There's just kind of I'm dealing with something behind the scenes. So
right. Okay, I'll wrap it up then. That's
okay. So, thanks, Dragon. I appreciate it.
That's fine. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So, folks, in closing, I'd like to say this on Ed Asner. We just scratched the surface on the man's
Oh, it's
work.
an iceberg for sure.
Absolutely. We scratched.
I mean,
the
honestly,
surface.
we could, if we wanted to, Dragon. And I'm just throwing this idea out there. We could do like a top 10, like obscure Ed Asner voice actor performances or something. It's like
Rather easily we could, yes.
Yeah.
So, for each and every one of those nigh infinite roles, let's call them, was a memory that left an impact. I mean, the ones that we brought up here, especially for me, these are all like wonderful memories of the man, and they meant something different to each generation. It went from man's career, went from the heavy to the boss to the legit X factor of the legitimacy factor to Santa Claus to America's poster for aging with dignity and respect. He did get better with each role and passing year. He was such a talent, and at the end of the day, to circle back to Cosgrove, he distracted us from our own troubles when we needed him, and like Freakazoid, we loved hanging out with him with with through our TV screens and in the theaters and what have you. And the last word on it would be thanks for the adventure, Ed.
And also big thanks to Honeybee and Claude for joining us. And yeah, man, just give some of my final thoughts as well, Dragon. Because I kind of ducked out at the Up thing. So just to kind of wrap up with the Up thing. I just with Up, I very much feel like his speech, Dragon, his that interview. I want to kind of wrap it back up to the interview, if you don't mind me. Just kind of I'm sorry, I just want to kind of say my piece on it.
Well,
Because I always looked it up as just like we all look it up where it's like, oh, it's married life, like basically it's like I have had that criticism of Up in the past where I'm like, you could basically take Married Life, release it as a short film and it would win an Oscar just on its own. But Dragon, I gotta say, like seeing him just kind of have such a passion and reverence for life, and just kind of like how meaningful all the post Ellie stuff, all the post Married Life stuff was to him, definitely gave me a new perspective on the movie, and I definitely need to go back and rewatch it on that lens. So yeah, folks, this is indeed a very sad occasion, and we hope. I'm sorry, Dragon, take us out again. I'm not good at wrapping these things up.
Yeah, I know. That's why
another thing to go out on.
Yeah, that's why I wrapped it up. But
I know. I'm sorry. I just wanted to shout out the people in the comments, and then so I'm sorry.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up with a quote from Ed Asner. I thought.
Okay, please do. Please do.
So Ed Asner said, "We only mourn for so long. We need to live life while we can live it."
Well said. Well said.
Thanks for the adventure, Ed.